So earlier today I did a practice icosahedron. Looking at their model, I got it in my head that there were 6 sides. What I didn't take into account was that with a hexagon that we pretty much have 6 equilateral triangles at the top. So it will generate this shape, but the top will be flat and the bottom will be flat, and it'll generate some of those arrows. So this is a pentagon. We're seeing the 3 sides, and the other 2 sides go towards the back. And so with each of those legs and then the whatever 72 degrees between and 36 degrees off, that we would end up with 2 facets per face. So that gives us 10, 5 on top, 5 on the bottom, for a total of 20. So let's try this with that geometry. And I want to do a 3D sketch. With a 3D sketch, we have the geometry, but anytime I go in to draw, we're going to see this. I call it a floating origin, but the XY on the cursor says that's what I'm sketching in. What I'd rather have is the front plane, and when I double click on it, it comes up with this grid, and we'll use a midpoint line because I'm going to center this about the origin. Let's see, I did not make that for construction. Really shouldn't matter. And I'm going to go ahead and put a dimension just as a placeholder so it doesn't move around, because there's already a lot of things going on in this 3D sketch and setting up this skeleton. All right, and then for the peak, we'll do pretty much the same thing. Placeholder, make sure that those are equal. All right, since I'm there, I'll go ahead and apply the construction geometry and then set to equal. And we'll put a dimension in place. All right, so that gives me the ability then to stay kind of in that angle so I can hold my perspective. The little used plane in the sketch tools, insert a plane into a 3D sketch. So much like our feature, our reference geometry plane, this is going to allow us to select the top plane, make it parallel, go to a second reference, and place it at a point. And then that point will become active. And I'm not really happy with the size of the grid, so we'll stretch that out a little bit. All right, and notice we don't have a polygon, so I'm going to have to generate this pentagon manually. So let's go ahead and make a construction circle. So just drawing the circle, switch it to construction geometry, or come over to the property manager and make sure that for construction is checked. And same thing, we'll put a dimension on it real quick, hitting the S key. We'll go about 3 inches, see what that generates. And so we're going to be a little bit oblong, but I'm going to get rid of the dimensions that I don't need in order to have all of this geometry come together, hopefully. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so I'm not overly concerned with the shape. I would like the vertex to be vertical to the origin. Starting off with an overdefined right away. Okay, so not sure what I picked there, which is one of the reasons why working in the isometric does help a little bit. If I'm going to place that to the origin, well, they're not in exactly the same spot. So I can tell I'm in a 3D sketch because when I rotate this, the sort of pentagon that I've generated is not going all wonky weird looking. So let's try that again, make it vertical to the circle center that I created. And then we'll go about selecting each of the lines and making them equal. So select, hold down the control button, select. Got a midpoint that I don't want, so I'll deselect it, go back for the line, and set them to equal. And then we're going to go tangent, I keep getting that midpoint. That does happen if you're pretty close to the midpoint of the line. It kind of jumps and defaults to that. So we'll pick a little closer to the end of the line there. So we have the tangencies. All right, so it didn't go completely. Would have expected that to go a little more defined. So dragging it, it's not moving strange, but it hasn't gone fully defined here. So we have the one horizontal, and we'll click out of that and try again, see what kind of trouble I can cause with the 3D sketch plane. Again to the top. This time we're parallel and going to the bottom. All right, so to the bottom of the shape. All right, and then we will generate our circle. All right, so S key back into the circle, make it for construction. I want it to be the same size as the upper circle and set that to equal. And then we're going to do the opposite. So my vertex, or the point in relation to the center of the circle, will be opposite the top one. Put in the 5 segments. We can go ahead and select, control select, control select, control select, control select, and set those to equal. And then the circle, the line, tangent, line, circle, tangent, line, circle. So pretty much I'm just selecting one of the unselected so that it will deselect, if that makes any sense, the current items, and then I can reselect the items that I need. So vertical. Now that one went fully defined, so we click out of it. Now for whatever reason it's happy. So yeah, the 3D sketches can be a little bit strange. All right, so scale-wise, let's go up to 6 inches. That looks a little bit better. And I have enough information here to start to connect the dots. So we're going to generate the first triangle, and really only need that one. And so for the top and the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and do just the one, but you can kind of start to see it come together. All right, so if everything else is going okay here, then I should be able to make that driven. Everything goes back to an underdefined. We know that the sides are all equal. Now let's try and make that equal. And the last one will be to make the top equal, except I have not set the 2 inches to a driven dimension. All right, so driven just basically means it's going to return a value. The 6 inch is going to drive the calculations for these two. All right, so if I go equal to any one of those, then I get my geometry and the shape. And let's see, is anything moving? So at this point, nothing is moving any way that I wouldn't expect it to. I'm going to go ahead and put in the last line just for reference. All right, so with the 3D sketch too, once I'm out of those planes, really can ignore the X and the Y, or the Y and the Z, and the Z and the X, as long as I'm going from endpoint to endpoint. So for whatever reason, now it's happy again. So we're going to go with that. All right, so I'm going to use the revolve, or a feature circular pattern, and we're going to generate surfaces for this geometry. So I could have created these planes inside of the 3D sketch, And if I go back, I did turn those off last time. So if I turn on the 3D sketch planes, now we can see plane 3 and plane 4. They activated as soon as I used them. If I needed to get back into it, then I would have to show them and double click on them. So we're kind of through with those for now, so that's all right. And generate a plane through a line at a point. So that line, that point will be my first surface. And we open up a sketch on plane 1. And I'm going to stay in that rotation because I'm getting, it's going to be easy to get confused on this. And we'll go ahead and S key convert, which is the same as coming up here to the convert, and throw in the third line. All right, so that gives me a surface that I can, or a closed object that I can insert surface and planar, and that gives me my first piece of geometry. All right, so we'll need to figure out the best way to go about this. Going to hide that plane. The next plane will be here, and we're going through the line at the point. So basically 3 points to define the plane. We'll pick the same, need to get into the sketch. So highlighting plane 2, open the sketch. Or it went normal 2 for me, but I'm not something I really need. And we'll convert those entities, go into the line. And I'm not seeing that other one, but let's go ahead and hide. Let's get out of it. Now we can hide it. All right, so everything did highlight there. So let's hide that sketch, or the plane, and go into the sketch. And I'm going to use the surface enough that this would be a good time to go into the tabs, turn the surface tab on, and use the features so much that it's just habit to jump into features. So kind of have to think about and work on those geometries. All right, so for our next plane, let's see, we have reference geometry over here, plane. We'll go with the bottom, and then the second reference will be that one. Open up the sketch, convert my 3 geometry since I sketched them in there. So I could put as many lines in there as I wanted, but I don't want to get myself confused on that one. So sketch 4, planar surface, and then the last one, let's go with the reference geometry plane. We'll use the bottom edge through the point and accept, and we'll sketch, and it rotated over on me again, so let's get it in a view that I can check. All right, and then line from the points to point. Accept, hide the plane, and then sketch 5 also becomes a planar surface. All right, so if I go back into my isometric, we should need 5 of each of these. So I don't really want to knit these together just yet, but let's go ahead and pick the surfaces. I missed one. All right. We're going to go into the features and into the circular pattern. All right, so this isn't a feature, could be a face, probably going to end up being a surface body though. So since it's not showing up, we're going to kick those out, go into the bodies, basically reselect the 4 items, and I need a total of 5 of those. Now face 2 is what it, oh wow, I'm not sure. Oh, since I had those selected and that was the first selection, that is a weird axis to revolve around or to create the circle with. So, all right, so that's going to finish my construction. Then we have the 20 surface bodies, so that's a good number. I can hide the 3D sketch. And before, let's just do a quick double check. I got to clear my screen capture. So if I grab a couple of these, 4.359, 359, 4.359, I should be able to go through all of these intersecting or joining edges and get them to be the same. So right now, these are all surface bodies. And I want to make this into a solid. So we're going to go with the knit surface. And the selections are all of the bodies. So let's see if I can shift select. And it thinks about it, but it does grab them. And then we're going to create the solid. There's not really anything there to merge, but let's go ahead and accept it. So all of my surfaces disappear and I end up with the one solid body. And we can check that because if I do the section view, I'm going to see that this is pretty much solid any way I go. Does not have a wall or a thin wall or anything to contend with. If I suppress the knit though, and we go back into that section view, you kind of see the interior and exterior, and it's just like we folded up pieces of paper into the little triangles, and that is our geometry. So we have, let's get back, oh yeah, the surface bodies came back. We will unsuppress the surface knit, look at it in isometric, and then the fun part, if I was manufacturing this, I would like to do this on a at the very least a 4th axis, if not a 5 axis. So maybe this will be something that I can would be interesting to try and program. So let's open up the Icosahedron, not a hex. All right, so the same basic construction, and as I mentioned, the error that I was getting on one of, was the same as one of the previous, is checking for 0 thickness, since the hex will generate a equilateral triangle. If I go from there to there, I get a measurement of 2.28, and from the center to the outside, 2.28. So my center line that was governing that that peak was shrinking to a 0, which it wouldn't allow. So that was my clue that I messed up. So that was the after a little bit of searching. So the other check real quick is if I wanted to make this a 12-inch. Then I change the value, hit rebuild, and the icosahedron is going to go to the next size. For machining, realistically, I don't want this much over 4-inch. I'd really need to see what kind of cylinder this would fit into, because I think I would be looking at holding this in a 3-jaw or 4-jaw chuck, so that when I machine it, there is a post or something at the very end. All right, so fun with those shapes. I'll tackle the dodecahedron next, and I've found the model for the buckyball, but I haven't attempted that one yet. So that'll be an interesting later on exercise.